I should start off by saying that I've lived in the same exact house my entire life. I know that might not seem unusual, but it's necessary for you to understand. For 19 years, no one else has lived in this house aside from my mother, my brother, and myself. My father passed away a few years after I was born, so it's been the three of us here ever since. Our house is settled in the middle of the suburbs in a small town in central Michigan. The town was just your average run-of-the-mill slice of Americana. It wasn't a bad place to spend one's childhood, though I honestly don't have much else to compare it to. My parents both grew up in the state and met each other during their time in college. My brother, who's a year older than me, was somewhat unexpected, as my mother liked to put it. So it forced my parents to relocate to a more permanent means of living. They bought this quaint, unassuming home on the corner of a small neighborhood block. I always thought our house was unique as it didn't look like any of the other houses that stretched down the road. Our house, according to the realtor, was built in the 60s, where all the other houses were constructed sometime later, sporting more modern exteriors. A year after my parents closed on the house, I was born. Like I mentioned previously, everything was normal. Our lives journeyed on like I'm sure many others, until my 4th birthday, that is. My father was, from what I've been told, a jovial man. Every photo I've seen of him was always full of smiles and warmth. My mother told me he was a steelworker at a processing plant in the city. The job was difficult, but that didn't matter to him as long as he could provide for his family. Then, when my 4th birthday rolled around, he was on his way home after pulling a double shift at work. A drunk driver swerved into the oncoming lane, and both cars collided head-on. There were no survivors. To say it was a lousy birthday would be an understatement. I know I shouldn't joke, but humor had a way of lessening the pain. Honestly, at the time, I couldn't really process the devastation. Our mother was beside herself with grief, and for a few months my brother and I had to go stay with extended family, while our mother got the affairs in order. Around a year after the funeral, our lives started to reclaim a modicum of normalcy. We started school, which helped greatly in drawing our attention away from the past. Before we knew it, the incident became a solemn memory that we all shared but never discussed. After high school, my brother got a football scholarship to go play at a university, an opportunity both my mother and I were amazed and proud of. I, on the other hand, wasn't very skilled in athletics, but my brother was a natural at it. He had gotten a full ride to go play in college, so he was forced to leave and live on campus. The house felt lifeless without my brother here. Yet, despite the desolation, we were happy for him. I, on the other hand, had started my own personal business as a photographer. I started selling my services about halfway through high school, mostly to just friends and family. After nearly 3 years, I had designed myself a website and formed a decent portfolio. After school, it felt like every week I was either shooting a wedding, birthday, or some office work party. Since I basically worked from home, I had an abundance of time to spend around the house. I did a lot of the housework that my mother was too busy to get to. Then, one weekend my mother came to me with a request. She told me that there was a lot of stuff up in the attic that needed to be brought down so she could donate. She explained that it was just a handful of boxes, but some were too heavy for her to manage on her own. I told her to say no more and I'd head up there right away and bring down what I could. I pulled down the stairs that led up to the attic and ascended them. Immediately I was hit with a wave of heat and stale air. I could already feel sweat forming on my face after only being up there for a few moments. I looked around and spotted all the boxes stacked in a single corner. One by one, I carried the boxes down the stairs and set them in the living room. It wasn't long until there was only a single box remaining. I climbed the stairs one last time and crouched my way all the way to the back of the attic. As I knelt down to hoist the box up, I saw something glinting from the faint sunlight peeking through the cracks in the siding. I laid on the ground and crawled my way over to the glinting object. I reached between two pieces of wood and fished out whatever it was that was shining. As I pulled it into view, I saw that it was a VHS tape. I blew on it and a wall of dust drifted off, dancing in the sunbeams. The tape looked ancient, not to mention I haven't seen a VHS tape since I was a child. There were no markings or labels to indicate what was on the tape, so I just set it on the box and carried them both down. After clearing out the attic, I couldn't shake my curiosity about the tape. I remembered we used to have an old VCR that my mother couldn't bring herself to throw out. She kept it in the garage. After taking a few moments to locate and retrieve it, I took both the VCR and the tape to my room. It took me a little while to hook everything up. By that time, the sun had set, and I could already hear the nocturnal sounds of nature echoing outside my window. I pushed the tape into the VCR and pressed the rewind button. Honestly, I wasn't sure what to expect. I was pretty sure that the tape would either be blank or simply wouldn't work. A moment later, I heard a click indicating that the tape was finished rewinding. I pressed play and sat back, waiting. The screen crackled to life, though only a blank screen with faint static appeared. This continued for a few minutes. I thought my previous assumption was correct, that the tape had decayed from being up in the attic for so long. Then a scene appeared. It was our family. We were all relaxing outside on a warm summer day. My brother and I were playing with a hose, while my mother lounged on a lawn chair in the yard. I almost felt tears forming when I realized who was filming. It had to have been Dad, before the accident. The scene faded and a new one appeared. This time we were all slightly older. We were sitting around a Christmas tree opening presents. Everyone was laughing at my brother who covered himself in tinsel. Seeing all these snapshots from the past was both tragic and incredible. The scene faded to black once more, and another came into view. This time my brother and I were much older. We were standing outside of our house with our mother. I recognized the outfit I was wearing immediately. It was the first day of high school. A smile crept across my face. Then it immediately vanished when I realized that none of this made any sense. My father passed away when I was 4. So who was filming us? The cameraman was standing clearly in the front yard, so we surely would have seen them filming us. But thinking back, I didn't remember anyone else being there that day. The image disappeared and a static-filled blackness returned. I thought that might be the end of the tape, but after a few minutes, something slowly started to appear. This time, the camera was pointing towards the back of our house from the nearby tree line. I could see myself, again older, and I was standing out in the backyard. I was holding a camera, taking photos and testing the lens. I had just received it as a gift from my mother for graduating high school. I watched as I turned, taking photos of the trees that decorated our backyard. I aimed my new camera right in the direction of whoever was filming and snapped a picture. I couldn't see any recognition on my face as if I had spotted someone, though I don't see how I could miss someone standing clearly there filming me. I thought back to when I had received the camera, and I couldn't recall anyone else being there aside from me. The film then stuttered for a few seconds and shut off. I sat there in silence wondering who could have made this video. That's when I remembered that, ever since I received my new camera, I've backed up every photo I've taken with it. Something I've gotten into the habit of as I've found many gems that I didn't realize I've captured. I walked over to my computer and booted it up. After a few long minutes, my desktop appeared, and I opened up my cloud drive. I scrolled down the list for nearly 20 minutes before coming to the end, or I should say, the beginning. I recognized the photos of our backyard almost immediately. I opened each photo and scanned them closely. None of them looked out of the ordinary. That's when I opened the last photo of the set. Standing in between two trees was a figure. It appeared to be a man. He was wearing dark blue jeans and a bright red flannel shirt. He seemed to be holding something, but the photo was partially blurred at hand level. I'm assuming it was the video camera. I could feel my palms tense up as I stared at the person's face, however. The face was contorted into a hellish expression of pain and anguish. The head was tilted to one side, and whoever it was appeared to be screaming. As soon as I zoomed in on the photo to get a better look, the power to my house went out. I sat there in the dark for a few moments wondering what the hell was going on. My mother called out asking if I was alright, and I shouted back that everything was fine. A couple minutes passed, and the power returned. My computer booted back up and I attempted to relocate the image, but upon scouring my files for nearly 30 minutes, I couldn't find it. It was like that photo had been wiped from existence. I ran back over to the VCR and made sure the tape was still in there. I played the tape once again, and everything appeared normally. Well, as normal as it could be. I have no idea what's going on or how any of this is even possible. I have a million questions racing through my mind. Like, how was this tape even made? Despite having footage from a year ago, the tape appeared over a decade old. How did it end up in the attic? But, most importantly, who was actually recording? Just then, my mother opened the door and asked me if I was doing alright. I returned a shaky nod. She then handed me something and I could feel my muscles tighten as I looked at it. It was a bright red flannel t-shirt, the same exact one as the man in the photo was wearing. I turned to her, speechless, and she just said, "This was your father's. It was his favorite shirt. I found it in one of the boxes from the attic. I thought that you might like to have it."